I was 21 back in 1991. I was in a car accident, pretty bad car wreck. I was a passenger and I was sleeping with the seat leaned all the way back, and we hit. I still don't really know exactly what we hit, but it broke. The seatbelt was in front of me, and I came flying up to it, and it broke my neck, and it left me as a quadriplegic, C5-6 quadriplegic, paralyzed from. I can move my shoulders and my biceps, but other than that, I can't move anything else really. I can't move my hands. I don't have much tricep to extend my arm out. So that's where I'm at with the accident. And during one of the surgeries, I had an out-of-body experience that it was pretty wild. I was going up a tunnel. I was floating up, and there was three. I could see like a white light and three shadows at the top, and they were coaxing me to just give in, just come on, relax, let go. This one's over, this life is over. And I was like, well, wait, I don't want to go yet, and I was kind of arguing with them a little bit, and they were insistent on me coming up. And then I was getting a lot of visitors from high school and college and stuff. And a lot of girls were there that I had like crushes on my whole life and stuff. And it meant a lot to me that they were there. So I was like going up the tunnel, and I'm like, wait though, have you seen how many hot women are coming to visit me? I can't leave. And they laughed really hard. And I went right back down into my body with like a zip. And that was my first near-death experience.
So that sounds quite intense, and then you've wanted to come back and your wish was granted. Did you ever regret that?
Yeah, occasionally I do, because I do have to live in this paralyzed body, and it's a lot of work, getting caregivers and making sure there's I have to have two people here every day to make my life work. And there's good times though. There's a little bit of wondering what would have happened if I would have just gave in,
Yeah,
and went up the tunnel.
Imagine. And then once you have had this experience, did it open the doors to more experiences and to be more intuitive for you?
I feel like it did. Not right away. I didn't notice it right away. It took about probably 10, maybe 15 years before I started noticing that I had some psychic abilities, and I also had a lot of like I don't want to say channeling, because I'm not really sure what that is, but I have a lot of contact with just spirits. I feel like I'm communicated with all the time from people that have passed.
So did you have any other kind of encounters where you've traveled out of body or you've had entities visit you?
Yeah, I've had, let's see, as far as like near-death stuff, I've had a couple other ones since I've been in this position in the hospital and stuff. But as far as like leaving my body, just like in my daily life, not much. I mean, there's some dreaming stuff that goes on that's like not really, it feels like it's kind of like a dream, but it's a lot more real. And you know how dreams are usually kind of weird, it's like they're like blurry kind of. I mean, I still have dreams like that, but occasionally I have these super vivid dreams where there's always a message or something happening. And so that happens too.
Wow. So could you tell us a bit more about your other near-death experiences? You've mentioned you've had a few. How many did you have?
Well, that was the first one. I've had 3 other ones. Yeah. 2 of them were not really out of body. The fourth one was. The first one and the fourth one were definitely out of body. The second 2, and all of these have happened in the hospital, which is kind of ironic, I think. But the second 2, one, I had an acupuncture treatment that collapsed my lung, and they put a chest tube in, and it was the wrong size, and it eventually it clipped an artery, and I started bleeding to death. And that was pretty wild. They were counting down my blood pressure, and I got down to like the high number was 50 over like 15. It was pretty low, and I started seeing like this white milky plasma kind of stuff, and it was really strange. All the emergency people were coming in and out of the white milky stuff, and when they would come close, I could really see their faces, and I could hear them better when they were close. And other than that, anyone outside of it, I could hear slightly, but so that happened twice, and that was in the hospital.
Did you think that was, so whenever these things happened, did you know what a near-death experience was? Did you think like, oh, this is what I've been through? Or was it just a weird thing that happened that you had to puzzle together afterwards?
Yeah, it was just strange, and I had to puzzle it together later. A lot of this stuff, I haven't really put it all together till later in my life, like it's been 33 years since the accident, and I'm just now starting to put things together. The more I listen to podcasts and the more, I find the information, I'm like, oh my God, that's kind of what happened to me. Maybe that is what, that's what that was, an NDE.
Yeah, I can definitely understand that. Because I think so often we just don't know what we're going through. And I think it's always in hindsight that we're able to connect the dots, but not so much going forward.
Yeah, exactly. Is that a pretty frequent thing with people that have had NDEs? Or?
I think what I've noticed is for sure that they start to think more of a greater purpose, and that they're able to understand why certain things have happened. Because also thinking of your situation, so you've had this horrible car crash and then your life just changed completely. So from being a normal 21-year-old, just a total 180 to being in the hospital and having to fight for your life. So how have you reconciled what happened to you, and how did you manage to find meaning in, this is what was supposed to happen and that's what I need to make out of it?
Well, to be honest, I had this weird draw to Tibetan Buddhism, which I never even knew about that before the accident. But there's something in me that just kind of clicked, and I was very interested in that. And I started learning about that, and I learned about all the different lifetimes and reincarnations and things like that. And that, sometimes you're meant to learn something. It's like you keep getting reincarnated until you learn this lesson or or something like that. So, yeah, my life kind of became about that, trying to figure out what am I supposed to learn, and I feel like I'm supposed to stop doing something, and maybe this life I'm gonna stop it because I can't physically do whatever I was doing, whatever I needed to stop doing.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I have to say, speaking with you, a question somebody asked comes to mind. So somebody who has a chronic illness was wondering if during NDEs, when you're in a different world, because I can imagine, you've mentioned not being able to do so many things, but when you're in another dimension, is your body then whole, or do you just feel whole? The pain that you feel here, do you still feel it in another dimension? Have you ever experienced that?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. And the first one that I was just talking about in the tunnel, no, that I felt so peaceful and comfortable. It was kind of, I like to tell people it's kind of like when I went to Hawaii and got in the 85-degree water. I almost didn't want to leave, It was so, it was way better than the physical world that we live in. There's no pain, there's no temperature problem, it's just comfortable. And the fourth one that I had more of that one was more out of body, where I went to a place and we were walking, and I put my hand down at one point and touched some insects, and I could move my hand. Now with the paralysis, I can't. So yeah, to answer your question, I have a working body in the experiences.
Yeah, that's really cool, because I think, to be honest, until I saw the comments, I didn't know that many of the people that are watching NDE videos, they're trying to find answers for a lot of times for their own illness. So this is quite a common question that I get asked, if we are whole. And to be fair, I've had a previous interview where we also, where the guest that I've spoken to had a daughter that was was chronically sick from the moment she was born. So she was never able to talk or to, just be self-sufficient. And when he had an NDE, he was able to meet his daughter, who was just in, perfect shape and able to speak and just completely normal, as we would call it. Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy, huh?
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So what do you think? So you've mentioned, actually where I want to go is, you've mentioned this, last experience where you were walking down a path and you were touching some insects. Would you mind taking me into that story, how you got there and who was with you, if anybody? What was it like? What did it feel like?
Sure, yeah. That was again in the hospital. And this was my most current one, that was like 2 years ago. And I had gone to the hospital for, I have a catheter, and sometimes I get bladder infections, and it can cross the blood barrier and turn to sepsis. And that had happened, so I have to spend like 3 days in the hospital on IV antibiotics. And it's really crazy when I go in the hospital, because they're not prepared to take care of me like my people at home do, and I can't roll over, and I just gotta lay on my back and call them to put me on my side, and everything I need help with. So there was one night where they came in and they were gonna turn me on my other side, and the catheter, one of the nurses had placed a sticker on my leg that holds the catheter so it won't get pulled. And I didn't think I had that on because I don't wear one at home. She put it on anyway. I rolled over and the catheter got kinked. So basically, I had to go to the bathroom real bad, and I couldn't. If that happens at home, sometimes I can wake up and fix the problem. This time, I felt like I was in a dream, and I couldn't. I'm like, I have to go to the bathroom really bad. It's the bag is full, the catheter's kinked. There's like bells going off in my head saying, you got to do something, take care of this, fix this. And I couldn't slip back into reality. I was still in my dream. And then it just went into like this really real environment where the sky was like black and purple and pink, and just things were a lot of geometric shapes, like they almost looked like crystals, like with like outlines of buildings in like neon purple and pinks, and I just remember the colors being really vivid, and so I was standing with somebody, and I don't know who that was, but we were looking at we were kind of on a cliff edge, kind of in the mountains or something, and we could see a city. That's how I could see the buildings and stuff from far away, and we were waiting for the hawks to appear, and I'm not sure what that was about. But we kept waiting and waiting, and then eventually the hawks showed up, and it was not like a hawk like we're used to. It was like these round, almost looked like a propeller on a boat, with kind of like the curved things coming off, and they were black, and there's like two or three, and they were kind of flapping those blades. It's like a blade on a fan. And they flew right over the top of us, and I'm like, okay, there's the hawks. And then it kind of went into what I was telling you about just a minute ago with we were walking on a path, and there's like real tall grass. And once again, it's, I'm moving around in a body, but it just feels pleasant. The temperature is perfect. The sun is shining. I'm not hot. I'm not cold, obviously. And we're moving along this path, and it's just the feeling of this is just great. And I put my hand down to touch these insects, and they kind of conveyed a message to me that they were responsible for making crop circles, which I was like, okay, wow, that's interesting. And I was able to put them back down on the grass, and we kept walking, and pretty soon we got in a line, and there's like a cave kind of up around to the right, and everyone was lined up to go into the cave, and everybody was so happy, so thrilled to be there. And as people were like shaking hands and just congratulating themselves, and then the line would move a little bit towards the cave, and I felt like I knew the people all around me, but I couldn't tell you who they were right now.
Was there, it sounded like almost like there was somebody that you were walking on this path with, and then there were other people around this cave. So do you know, I want to call it a person, but do you know who was next to you and who you were walking with?
No, I have no idea. But I felt really comfortable with them. They were showing me around, kind of. And
have you met in your other near-death experiences, have you met other entities or guides or angels?
Not that, I don't know them as guides or angels, but the other one where I'm going up the tunnel, there's the three beings at the top, and I could just see their black silhouette, like shadow kind of thing. But I mean, the same thing with that one. I felt like I knew them, like I was a part of them. Like I knew them better than I know anyone in this reality. And that kind of blew my mind a little bit.
And were you at all scared?
No, that's a good question. I hear that sometimes, and the answer is no. I'm never scared. And the other ones, when they're working on me, trying to revive me, and I see the white plasma stuff, I am okay with it, and I can hear them, like counting down. The blood pressure is going lower. Blood pressure is going lower. We're about ready to lose them, and I'm just like laying there going, it's okay. I feel fine.
That's quite amazing. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so that's quite amazing that you were able, to meet these beings, and there's something very different from what we normally see, and yet there's no fear, and you're not scared of them.
Not at all. I mean, it's very inviting. It's welcoming. It feels like you're home, but I always come back to the body.
Yeah. So you mentioned you had written a book, Uncommon
Yes.
Vision. So
Yeah.
why did you feel like you had a message to relay and you wanted to write this book, and what can we read about?
Yeah. Well, like I said, I was, going down the rabbit hole of NDE podcasts, and like going on UFO Twitter and listening to all the stories from people in there, and I just kind of thought it was interesting to listen to, and then I start going, wait a minute, some of this stuff, I have the same experiences, and I have a Tibetan meditation teacher that he wrote his memoir, and I was reading his memoir, and I was, when you write, you like to show and not tell. So he's just showing little stories along his journey of becoming the meditation guy, master guy. And I was like, well, why can't I do that? I could tell my whole story and some of the psychic things and the near-death experiences and some of my UFO type encounters, and just things that I've noticed, synchronicities, and use those as showing what's happening along it's kind of like a spiritual path being realized by the end.
It's really interesting, and I mean, I definitely know that writing a book is a very hard thing to do, so it's definitely not something easy to just sit down and put it all together. So I always wonder, there needs to be a very strong reason for doing it.
Yeah, just getting the story out. And I'm older now as a quadriplegic. I'm coming up next month. I'll be starting my 34th year of doing this, and I think the record for someone is like 55 years in this situation that they've lasted before they die. And I have a lot of friends that have passed that were injured later than me, and you never know when it could happen. Like there's there was the initial car accident, but then 3 more have happened during these 33 years. And so I'm like, okay, well, just in case it's coming time, I want to get this out there, it's basically my whole journey and what I do, and just it's very brief. It's only 125 pages around there, and there's a lot of pictures that I created with AI, some of the experiences, because it's kind of hard to have a picture of that. So AI is really good for that, to try to illustrate your NDE.
Yeah, for sure. And what I think a lot of people also wonder, is a lot of us go through challenges, and we all have our own challenges in life. But I can definitely understand that you know, your world having changed at such an early age, and then your life just completely changed. And as you've mentioned in different moments, it's very difficult to go to the hospital to get the right treatment. So you're constantly having to deal with this. And I can imagine there's days where you're maybe a bit more motivated and you wake up all right and you can take this on. And there's probably other days when you think, God, again, you know, this can't be happening again. And, you know, you mentioned having this issue at the hospital where they were supposed to put a certain tube, I believe, in your artery, and then they got the wrong size, which must be so frustrating. And
yeah.
my question here is, how do you deal with those days, you know, when this just gets old and you just get tired of it, and it seems like, you know, there's other people that don't have to fight as hard to be here and to be alive?
That happens frequently. I can't lie, it happens a couple days a week. And you get up and you deal with, you know, I need 3 hours of care in the morning and 3 hours at night. But other than that, I can be in my wheelchair and be in my house. And those are the moments when I'm alone. Like, I have a cat and a dog, and you know, when I can watch them interacting with each other, and there's some peace there. I can go outside and, you know, feel the weather and watch the trees growing. Well, that sounds kind of funny, watching trees grow. But, you know, I'm observing the landscaping around my house, and those are the moments where it's all worth it. It makes it, you know, you can appreciate just life in general. And, you know, that's kind of the reason why I'm here, I think, now, is just to, you know, get through the 6 hours a day of the monotonous care routine. You know, I have to put up with a lot of stuff with caregivers and, you know, different personalities. They don't want to help me every day either, you know. So you have to deal with that. You get close to these people and learn all about them, and then they leave. You know, they give you 2 weeks notice and they're gone. And so, yeah, it's very difficult to manage. I hire everybody. I pay them out of a settlement I got from the car company, and I manage all the money. And it's like being a CEO of a big corporation and having to do the human resources and all the decisions and what we're doing and all the ordering of all the supplies, making sure that I got everything I need. You know, it's a job. It's a full-time job. But those moments of peace and you know, it happens when I'm alone, mostly.
And is this where you find your strength?
Yes, I would say for sure. Yeah, those moments are where, you know, you're like, okay, hey, I'm doing this, you know. And I try not to complain too much. I notice that my able-bodied helpers and friends and stuff, they complain a lot about little things.
Yeah, to be fair, I'll just make a small parenthesis, but you know, when I started this podcast, and a lot of the people that I speak to have been through accidents, really terrible disease, and every time when I'm thinking of complaining, you know, like, oh, it's raining today, I don't feel like doing something, or oh my God, they're out of something at the supermarket. Yeah. And whenever it gets to me, or this person said that to me, whenever it gets to me, then I take a second, and then it just feels so petty and it feels so unimportant. And just where it's definitely helped, I think, was when I go to the dentist, which I absolutely hate, and it's just this anxiety before and this whole thing. And then I keep thinking, you know, of the last interviews I've had and the people that have had it much more difficult than that. And okay, if they were able to get through this, I think I can get through an appointment. Should be just fine, but it helps put things in perspective, I think.
Yeah, well, that's awesome to hear that you do that. That's one thing I really like to try to do is get other people to think that way, you know? If I can tolerate this, I'm just a human, right? And I'm not anything special, but I can tolerate being paralyzed from the shoulders down. I think that everyone else should be able to tolerate other, some of the stuff that goes on. It shouldn't be so hard for them. And if I can be an example of somebody that, like you're saying, moves on with their life and deals with it, and I would love to inspire, encourage other people to do the same.
And I think you do. I think very often we tend to always find problems in our lives, and we tend to always find reasons to complain about. And then when we actually think of, does it really matter? 99% of things really don't matter. And the fact that you're so passionate about sharing your story and sharing your lessons, and you're making it through this journey that you have on your path, like with strength and with resilience. I think that's what it's all about, that we all have our own challenges in the world, but we need to face them best we can.
Yeah, and we have the ability to do that, We can dig down deep inside of ourselves and deal with all this hard stuff. Things like traffic, they don't really matter, I know it makes people angry, but I think we can get over that. We can get over a lot of our divisiveness with, religions and politics and all that. Those are little things. It's really not worth all the hatred and anger that goes on with that. That's one of my central messages to people is, that stuff shouldn't really matter that much, It should be tolerable.
Exactly. So what I usually like to end on, because I always feel that the people that I speak with maybe have messages or lessons to share that I don't always consider asking about. So was there anything that you would have liked to share, or that you feel called to share, that I haven't thought of asking you?
That's a really good question, and I feel like my answer, I just gave the answer that I would normally give for that. Just mostly, to not sweat the little stuff in life. The little things aren't so bad, I guess that's really my main message. If I can get used to this, I think everybody else could probably get used to some of the things that we all complain about. And it's really not that bad.
That's so true. And one of my beliefs is also that it is what you make of it. I think we can look at anything through a positive lens or through a negative lens, and it truly is dependent on how we want to look at it. And we can think our life is awful at any given point because there's been a minor inconvenience, or we can think our life is awesome and that will just resolve itself and will go away. And it's truly about how you think of it. It's not so much about the things that happen in it.
Yeah, and also it's like the weather, how we feel, it comes and goes. And I know when you're feeling down and bad, it's not fun to hear someone say, it's like the weather, it's going to change. It's hard to believe that, but I mean, just understanding that concept and trying to focus on that, there's going to be good times, there's going to be bad times, but it's worth it. It's worth the struggle to go on.
That's a beautiful message. Thank you for sharing it.
Yeah, thank you, Sabrina. So
Matt, how can we find you? How can we find your book?
My website, hendrickmedia.com, HENDRICK, media.com. You can find all my stuff there. I do some painting. You could see some of the oil painting I do, and some of my interviews and stuff. It's also on Amazon. You could search for Hendrick Media on there. Matt Hendrick. Uncommon Vision is the name. Embracing the Unseen.